So, money, love, prestige, or boredom. There's various reasons why we interact with different social media. But whatever the reason, there's no doubt that this is now part of our life. And it's funny when you think about 10 years ago when we would have to refer to a status update, we would really think that we had to give a paper report to our boss or a colleague. And I was reminded of this difference just this past weekend when I was watching my niece graduate from college and 400 of her journalism major peers. And I wondered about how their job hunt would go. And I reflected back to when I was job hunting, back when I got out of school, where all I had to worry about was my resume and how I presented myself in person. And nowadays, you really have to look at what your media identity says about you, because job seekers check that. My niece is very recalcitrant in her social media sites and postings, blogging, liking, pinning, and so forth. So much more than I am. I tend to worry about too much information. Maybe this is my tendency to be an introvert, my fear of saying the wrong thing, or just that security background in me saying, they're going to use that against you. If they say that you're on vacation, I'm going to get my house broken into. There's too much information that's out there. But maybe I could say more. Maybe I could tweet, hey, I'm at Toastmasters, come join me. Or start trying to have more of a presence, because I need to get myself out there. But it boils down to a balancing act. Social media is here to stay. And when you look out there as to what is associated with your ID, you have to realize that you're putting together a digital reputation for yourself. And that digital reputation can be queried and viewed. And you have to judge how much of a public presence you want and how much privacy do you want. Because that can also lead to that employment opportunity, which then impacts our financials. So when you think about the job market, you find that, again, social media contributes to your digital reputation, employment status, and money. And the first step in finding a job is putting yourself out there. And what I found interesting was the fact that I found this site where it claimed that 94% of recruiters, and I'm sure this was on a technical scale, were office workers, use LinkedIn. So that's saying that your LinkedIn profile, which is very public, is essentially your cover letter. So you have to spend some time on what that's going to look like. It's a good marketing strategy. Now that's just part of just finding a job. The next part is getting the job. And what I found interesting was the fact that we are getting more and more just Googling your name and finding out what's out there. And Facebook, many people are already on there. So why not just look up your name and see what you can see? And then to find out that more and more employers are utilizing this to do that pre-screening. Now, an example of how important this is really came to mind when I was reaching out to a former coworker via LinkedIn. And we got on the topic of public persona versus what's private. So I kind of challenged it a bit, and I'm like, I'm not friends with you on Facebook, so I went out and I searched for it. I was really surprised at what was public. It was definitely some posts and pictures that maybe didn't present him in the most professional of light. So I lightheartedly kind of reminded him of this, and in a day he had changed it. So it does matter as to what you're putting out there. It's important to be aware of what your public view is saying about you. Now then, there's also a very negative portion of this. We're finding more and more that as there's different ways where people are just out of spite or out of boredom or what, but they'll start looking at your profile and you find out maybe you could get in trouble for what you're posting. You have to be cognitive of what is out there publicly and balance between what is in your public light versus in your private light. Again, it boils down to being aware of your public views. What's your appropriate information you want to share versus what highlights, because there's also great things, like I mentioned before, getting the job. So we have to balance our digital reputation and share our thoughts. But then the next thought, so let's say that you have everything under control. You know what you want to post in public versus private. But the next question is, are there too many connections? Could you have too many connections? Again, it becomes a balancing act. If you establish meaningful connections, those are great. But do you know who your friends are? Do you know who your friends' friends are? There could be information fishing going on, where they're trying to find out information. Just by being a basic friend, you get email address and potentially phone number exposed to different people. And you think, oh, sure, I know who my friends are. Well, there was a very interesting experiment that was done. This Chet Wazowski, from a security advisor from Sophos, actually did an experiment where he took and he tried to send out 200 friend requests for this Freddie Star, with the only picture being this frog. And how many people do you think accepted that friend request?
197.
You'd think, but actually the number was 81. So there was a 41% people just blindly didn't know who this person was. They want to connect with me? Sure, I'll connect with them. Again, exposing themselves and their information to various people. Now, this experiment was done 6 years ago, and you think, oh, we've learned since then. No, I found this out myself. I inadvertently did my own experiment. One night, I was up, checking my LinkedIn, like, oh, who have I not connected with, Well, eventually I got tired, and apparently, I retrofit what happened. I think my finger kind of slid across my iPad, and I inadvertently sent out 2 different requests to connect. And the only reason I found out about it was because one of them accepted. And so then I reverse engineered what I did and found out, whoa, I couldn't believe that it was that easy just to accidentally connect with people. But the fact that someone would connect with me not even knowing who I was. So I did the awkward unlinking thing and then retracted my other request. But it does show that it boils down that people want to connect. They want to have this information. And it comes to a balancing act again. How much public presence do you want versus how much privacy do you need? Sorry. So in closing, we have to keep up with our social media strategy. We have to decide how much of ourselves do we want to put out there. There's risks and rewards. Definitely some rewards as we go to more job hunts, putting yourself out there, but be aware of what you're doing and who you're connecting with. So have fun out there, but be safe.